Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and this is Supervember. All this month of November, I'm going to be covering different superhero games and maybe doing some other superhero content as well. And if you would like to participate, you can use this keyword to mark yourself as a participant in the Supervember celebration. And we can all do some really cool comic book stuff together. To kick off my participation inside Supervember, I'm going to be looking at Monte Cook Games' Claim the Sky, the superhero supplement for the Cypher System. Let's roll it. While there are rules for creating a superhero-style game in the Cypher System rulebook, Claim the Sky uses them as a launching pad to make the game feel even more like a comic book. So let's take a look at this. One of the strengths of Cypher System is the your character is a sentence concept. Being able to structure your character as an adjective, noun, who, verbs opens up the game to being able to build just about any concept you want. It's at the core of Cypher's narrative concept. On the other hand, having such an open-ended construction can lead to decision paralysis, particularly if a GM hasn't curated a list of the different adjectives, nouns, and verbs around which they want to build a campaign. And when you get to something like superheroes, where the concepts players may want to emulate are just all over the map, that paralysis can become even worse. So to counter this potential roadblock, Claim the Sky opens up with a player-focused chapter on how to go about building their characters. It includes a list of example builds for existing heroes, a table to help players figure out how their power's origin came to be, and then 41 different superhero archetypes players can build around, which has a lot of great advice for players as they construct their characters. It does, however, highlight one thing to which folks coming to Monte Cook Games products need to grow accustomed. You are going to read a lot. For each of the archetypes, you're not going to find a bullet list of options and suggestions you can glance at and then run. Everything's written, and it's often written well in prose form. This decision, and it's a design philosophy I've seen across the product line, makes following the design advice more flexible, but at the cost of being fast. The question is why does MCG do this? And it's really part of the design narrative for the game. The presentation isn't there to just say, well, just apply these options and then go. Rather, it's offered in such a way that players are able to think up a rationale for their character concept. Or to put it in an old acting cliche, MCG sets up their archetypes so that players can ask, what's my character's motivation? And because the game's set up that way, characters with similar power sets can become quite distinct. And I do appreciate that about the way Cypher System's designed. Claim the Sky does have a number of new descriptors, the adjective of the character sentence, which spring right from the pages of my favorite comics. Amazing, incredible, mighty, sensational, and uncanny. And as with all Cypher System descriptors, these provide one-time packages which affect the character build and include links to the starting adventure, like how do these characters know each other. And also, if you know comics, these new descriptors also highlight that somewhere inside Monte Cook Games, whoever wrote this part of the chapter is a Marvel Comics fan. And because I collected Marvel Comics back in the day, well done. There's also 7 new foci in the game which are added here, and I have 2 things to say about this. First, both foci and foci are acceptable pronunciations in American English. I have always said foci. I'm 51 years old, and that's just not going to change. I know it drives some people crazy, but it's right in the dictionary. And then second, in case you were wondering, a character's focus is the verb in the character sentence. Let's get back to the main review. Each of these new foci covers a classic superhero trope, like stretches, and it provides a focus ability path for the character to follow, and demonstrating how the hero grows into their powers as they tier up. And while many focus abilities come from the Cypher System rulebook and are actually listed with page numbers for that volume, a number of superhero tropes are added to the game inside Claim the Sky. The wield an enchanted weapon focus, for example, is a great path for creating a hero with abilities like Thor's with Mjolnir or Captain America's with his shield. Kind of cool. The character options are a perfect fit for this superhero companion, so I appreciate them and I love what they've added to the game here. The key new rule in Claim the Sky is actually an optional rule from the Cypher System rulebook. It's found on page 292, Power Shifts. These shifts function like automatic levels of effort, which don't count against the character's effort limit. Every character on a tier has a certain amount that they can apply to effort in any one check. Heroes actually begin with 5 shifts to add to a list of specific skills or abilities. And the easiest way to explain how power shifts work is actually through the concept of super strength. It's just one of the oldest superhero tropes, right? A character with 3 shifts in strength would do +3 damage per shift for a melee attack, so they can punch through some armor. But also they're going to lower the level of their targets by 3. So a 0 to 3 physical barrier could be treated as though it weren't even there. And even a level 10 task would be dropped to level 7 before the character applied any effort to the attempt. For this reason, when power shifts are in play, Claim the Sky extends Cypher System's level to cover not just levels 1 to 10, but levels 0 to 15. And that can make for some monumental attempts to do impossible things inside the game. And that's what superheroes should do. Power stunts, which are non-typical ways a character may attempt to use their powers, are also interesting and really highlighted in this book. Cypher System already includes a way to alter an ability on the fly just by spending some extra pull points for an attempt. But while this does come into play in Claim the Sky, they're just not quite epic enough for a superhero. To pull off a power stunt, a character may have to spend both more pull points and pass a check with a difficulty that's determined by how difficult the alteration would be to the power. An electric wielding character, for example, might need to make a level 4 check to regulate their electrical powers enough to charge a device without damaging it, which I think is kind of cool. And stunts which are attempted enough can become new skills that are permanent. They just require the GM's permission and then 2 experience points to make that stunt a permanent part of the character's development. Love that addition to the game. Chapter 4 specifically is an essay on how to design a superhero world. It includes looks at the types of building blocks, including write-ups on topics like cosmic entities and magic, stuff that just is all over comic books. And these can be used to create a setting. It also includes advice on creating the feel for the world. Do you want it realistic or comic bookish? What type of hero names are common in this world? A hero's legal status, because technically superheroes are vigilantes. And then what happens to supervillains after they're defeated? What do you do with them? The advice given in this chapter is terrific, and comic book fans will appreciate how it guides GMs through some well-known comic book concepts in order to create their own unique world. And then chapter 5 is one I'm going to have to go back to over and over and over again, because it's all about comic book storytelling and how a GM can lay out a scenario which incorporates themes like a hero's secret identity, hero team-ups, cliffhangers, and even guest stars. That last comic book trope, which is usually done to boost sales inside old comic book industry, is a great way to allow players to drop in and out of play as needed. You know, hey, we're just teaming up because I happen to be on this building as you're chasing this criminal. I would not have even considered doing that prior to reading this chapter, so I really am appreciative of the fact that they did this. The chapter ends with a separate section on characters coming back to life, and that plays right into the old Marvel joke, mutant heaven has a revolving door. There's so much in this book that I really appreciate. Chapter 8 is an amazing gallery of various heroes and villains, each of which is accompanied by a piece of fantastic artwork. And while Monte Cook Games has been working on condensing stat blocks down, most notably in the Cypher System Bestiary, which I'll have to do a review of soon, Cypher's typical narrative stats are a perfect fit for the superhero genre. They not only provide some background for each of the characters, but they also show how they might function during an interaction, combat or otherwise. Reading the entries in Chapter 8 took me right back to the old Marvel Universe comics from way back in the day, and I just ate it up. It is a fun gallery to read and provides a great launching point for creating new villains or NPC heroes that GMs can use in their own world. Well done. Part 2 of Claim the Sky from chapters 10 to 15 is about the Boundless campaign setting. This is a full comic book style superhero world and does have some fun elements. I will say that the world as a whole left me feeling a tad underwhelmed, and I'll talk about why in just a little bit. MCG did a good job building in a reason why superpowers came to be in the Boundless setting. It's that age-old sci-fi and hero trope of an ancient alien species visiting the planet before modern humans even arose. These mysterious aliens create compelling adventure hooks because different individuals and organizations are known to set out into the world looking for these ancient installations so they can use them for their own ends. The history of the Boundless's world also includes notable events which continue to impact the in-world present. And the most notable of these is an invasion by the expansionist alien species known as the Grin. The invasion was turned away with the help of a young hero whose personality was corrupted by the power augmentation device she wore during the invasion, and that ended up turning her into a villain. See, that's the type of character development that just sucks me right in. I do love that. But where part 2 breaks down for me is in chapter 12, which is the superpowered survey. Now, there's nothing awful in this chapter. It's just that MCG tried to provide some surveys for most of the world, including countries, geographic areas, and even individual cities. And it becomes an odd moment where more becomes less. While I appreciate MCG wanting to make a living world instead of just a city or two, like Marvel with New York or DC with Metropolis and Gotham, I didn't feel connected to any of the locales described in the chapter because it's just so much. Nothing in this chapter is bad. It just doesn't have the type of depth that could have been given had Boundless restricted itself to fewer locations, and it feels like there's just a bit of a missed opportunity here. The last 3 chapters of the book are adventures set in the Boundless universe, and these are all well designed and deal a nice range of comic book concepts, like a villain on a rampage and being whisked away to an alien world. Now, I've run several Monte Cook Games adventures at this point, and I have found them to be both easy to present and open enough that players' actions can make meaningful changes to the story, which I love. The 3 adventures that are in Claim the Sky keep up that level of quality. I am a little bit confused as to why all 3 of the adventures are for mid-tier characters, which makes this less useful as an introduction to running this genre inside the Cypher system. On the other hand, I will say that if GMs aren't planning on playing through a character's origin story, then this is a genre that starting a character out on tier 2 or 3 actually makes some sense. That way heroes can feel established, and it simplifies making adventures. So maybe a little bit confusing as to why they're not for first tier heroes, but I can see the case for starting out heroes a little further on in their careers. It might make for a more compelling campaign. Claim the Sky is a full-size U.S. letter book coming in at 8.5 by 11 inches. It's 226 pages, though the last actual content is the book's index that's found on pages 223 and 224. As with many MCG products, the book is glued notch binding, and while that's not as widespread as sewn binding, this is a premium bind, which makes the paper fibers part of the binding process itself, and it's arguable that this is actually more durable than sewn binding because of it. It doesn't strain the pages as much. It does take a lot to break in a notch binding, though, because the glue is stiff, but I found that it doesn't take too long to get the book opening well, and the shorter white cover books break in really, really fast. But you're going to hear a lot of creaking that can be alarming. The book's cover follows the tried and true abstract style of the other MCG white books. I love the artwork depicting a hero reveling in the power of flight, and the way the backdrop artwork of a city is contained within a comic book speech bubble. It's just chef's kiss. The back cover contains a nice blurb on what's in the book and includes a wide panel depicting some heroes moving through a mystical portal where shadow beasts await them. It really does belong in a comic book. It's beautiful. The interior cover pages have some fantastic comic book art displayed, but the rear cover wins the day. It's a 2-panel piece showing the hero being surprised and then what happens next. Just fantastic. The rear of the book also includes a 2-sided poster showing a superhero base on one side, which I gotta say, bases just aren't that compelling an aspect of superheroes for me, so that doesn't interest me that much. But the other side is the cover art, and that is a nice addition. My only 2 knocks on the book construction are that it uses glossy paper and it does not have book ribbons. And I do find it hysterical that all the books from one of my favorite TTRPG publishers gets these 2 dings with every book I've gotten from them. But I can't help it, their stuff is just that good. The book has a beautiful interior layout, which, as you might guess, draws on some comic book elements. Chapter titles include that classic comic corner call-out. It's in a comic style font. And then the chapter title is a classic superhero swooping presentation presenting dynamism and power. Really cool. There are 2 heading levels in the book, and I think MCG did a wonderful job differentiating them. Top levels are white text and a dark bluish purple, while second level headings are a smaller white text against a lighter purple field. Now, if MCG had made the colors even a little bit more similar, telling the levels apart would have been a chore. Instead, the background fields for the 2 headings are complementary. I didn't even have to think twice about which was which. It was really easy to navigate. Heading fonts are a distinct sans serif font with some nice weight, while the body text is a thin sans serif font, which is easy on the eyes, but I will say that the combination of my older eyes and the light weight meant I was switching to my PDF in any kind of dim light. That's just the hazards of getting older. The book is really pleasant to look at and read. Headers and footers are simple, and while the book has 2 parts, it breaks with a lot of MCG books by using a single color for them throughout the book. Headers have the book's title on the left page and the chapter title on the right, both in bold comic book title fonts. Footers have a small swoop near the outer margin with the page number inside. Very, very plain, simple, gets the job done. Claim the Sky does use MCG's signature margin notes, however, and that includes a shaded variety for any note that refers back to the Cypher System rulebook. Very, very nice. It's easy to read and follow, and I'm calling upon the PDF spec to find a way to deal with margin notes in a way that's helpful for the visually impaired. Because visually, this is great. I love it, but I do know folks who are dependent on screen readers are frustrated by margin notes because e-readers right now have no idea what to do with them. The PDF spec needs some accessibility updates, so it's a little bit of a side because I love the margin notes and I want them to stay. The artwork is just beautiful. If I had any bicker with it, it's that some of the art feels more like old school high fantasy art than the pulpy comics of old. Now, I haven't collected comic books for decades, and it hurts to say that. So the artwork in modern comics might be all more formally awesome now. I just don't know. But it might have been interesting to see the entire book presented in that old comic book style. And really, folks, the art is too good is a silly thing to complain about. It's cool, and in so many of the artwork that is shown, I just want to see what happens next. That's really a good sign of compelling art. I loved the first 2/3 of this book, and I soaked it up as I read through the material. Claim the Sky is a terrific example of presenting a way to construct a world based on narrative concepts rather than mechanical ones, and I'm here for it. This is something Monte Cook Games does well. Now, the Boundless setting was something I wished could have been narrowed a little bit more to give it a sandboxy feel. But even then, it's not terrible. I just wanted a bit more depth and a narrower range. And I will say this, the characters that Monte Cook Games has created for Boundless are so compelling and interesting, and they have really neat backstories that I kind of want to see a few comic books just with these characters in them to see what they're actually doing. I think that would be really, really fun. As I write this review, Claim the Sky is on sale over at Monte Cook Games site. You can pick the print book up by itself for $43.49, the PDF for $16.52, and the print PDF combo for $48.45, which is about $7 off the typical price. So that's not a bad deal. If you're planning on trying out some superhero gaming using Cypher System, Claim the Sky is a good pickup. I do recommend it. So as I said, it is Supervember, and all this month I'm going to be focusing on superhero content. I am about halfway through the Superpowers Companion for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, and I'm going to be doing that video next. Savage Worlds, while far from being crunchy, is a lot more tactile than the Cypher System, so reading this book right after finishing Claim the Sky is fascinating, and I cannot wait to share my thoughts with you. After that, I'm going to be diving into the Sentinel Comics RPG, which is little known, but kind of interesting. It has some interesting features in it that I'm looking forward to exploring. And then I'm going to try my hand at reading the Marvel Multiverse RPG again, which I just couldn't get into the last time I tried. There's something about the game that doesn't click with me, but for Supervember, we're going to try again. With the holidays upon us, it might be difficult to find a window, but I think I would also like doing a superhero live stream this month at some point, so we'll see if I have enough time and wherewithal to pull that off. A lot of fun stuff coming up. I cannot wait till December for some of the other things that I've just picked up. But until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.